Good evening and welcome to Open Your Mind Internet Radio. You have myself, Alan James.
And you have myself, Stephen George. A very good evening.
Good evening. It's Sunday the 13th of January 2013 in the new year. And it's a bit foggy outside. Weather's pretty bad at the moment. But I believe we're not going to get any snow, which is a good thing.
Are we not? Because I just in passing, I glanced at the TV screen. Now, I'm not saying I have a TV screen. I'm not saying whether it was in my house or someone else's house. But I did see on a TV screen that there was snow in the UK. I think somebody somewhere was watching BBC News in and around 6 p.m. and the newscaster was saying that there was snow on the way, but they were well prepared and they were gritting the roads, etc., etc. But yeah, I was kind of big concerned that it might end up over here and it'll be there on the ground at 6:30 in the morning when one is leaving for work.
Typical Monday morning. Right, okay, our guest on the show tonight is a chap called Neil Saunders, who's a bit of an expert when it comes to mind control. He's also got 2 books out. So we're going to be talking to Neil about his books and all about mind control and the Jimmy Savile stuff and Max Clifford and a few other things as well. But before we get Neil in, we'll go over to and find out what the communication channels are.
Yes, communication channels are, as usual, info@oymireland.com for your emails during the show and also during the week if you need to contact us for anything at all. We also have the guest book on the website. You can log in there. You can leave a message for the future generations. We can also have the chat facility on the website as well. Just log into oymireland.com. Up in the top left-hand corner, you will see the live chat button. Just give it an old click, and you can log in with your real name or a pseudonym, and you can join in the chat there. You can also pose questions to our special guest, Neil Saunders, this evening. And lastly, you can give us a call on the telephone if you wish on...
Give us a call on 046 927 1212.
04692711212. If you're ringing in from outside the Republic of Ireland, it'll be 00353 in front of that. Alan.
Thank you, Steve. Right, okay, yesterday we had the United We Strike Radio Marathon. Detlev from Wake News Radio did the first half of the show, producing that, and then I jumped in on the second half. And he had some great guests over there in the States. So if you have time, sometime during the week, the actual archive of the United We Strike show will be up on United We Strike. You can go to OYM and just click on the UWS player, and you'll hear the show there. Some great information. Karen interviewing a lot of guests about different things, Agenda 21, and loads of other topics there that you can have a listen to. So pop over there and have a listen. Now, Ireland's Independence Day is on the 21st of January in the Mansion House. So...
Correct.
Right, okay. So we're going to do our very best, I'm sure, to try and get down there. Obviously, for obvious reasons, it's Ireland's Independence Day. We were down there last year with Vin and a few other people there that we met, which is great meeting them. So we're going to try and do our damnedest to try and get down. So that's January the 21st for people who don't know that. That's Ireland's Independence Day. A lot of people don't actually know that. They don't even know. Some people don't even know that Ireland has an Independence Day, but that's the date.
Yeah, you're absolutely right there, because I only discussed this last week with one of the chaps in work, and I said to him, do you know when Ireland's Independence Day is? And he looked at me funny. I said, do you know when America's Independence Day? And he said, 4th of July. I says, yeah, what about Ireland's Independence Day? And again, a blank stare. I said, I won't tell you actually, Patrick is his name. I said, I won't tell you, Pat, when it is, but go and check it out and, see what you can find out. And he looked at me, Ireland has an independence. Are you sure? Are you sure? I said, I am 100% sure. I said, because I was at it last year. I said, it involves a turning of the sovereign seal. And again, I got a blank stare. The sovereign seal? And I says, right. I said, in layman's terms, you know that harp that comes on the government letters and all that, blah, blah, blah? He said, yes. I said, well, that's actually, it's not a harp, it's a sovereign seal. I said, and there's a story behind it. Each string there's a meaning behind each string.
That's it.
Yeah.
Educating the Irish people, like, it's gas how we know the Independence Day of America, but we don't know the Independence Day of Ireland. It's very brilliant that the kids in school are being taught, good Irish history. And believe it or not, I even asked down in my son's school, are they teaching you how to sing the national anthem? Just out of curiosity, because when I was in school, we never learned how to sing it at the words or anything like that. And of course, they're not doing it. They're doing some Latin. He can sing some song in Latin, all right. But
really?
He can sing some song in Latin, but you can't sing. They're not teaching them the Irish national anthem. You would think that they would teach the kids that.
Absolutely. Well, the American kids are taught their own, aren't they? And any one of them at any given time could stand up and recite it verbatim.
Yeah, you're talking about the school system here. You know, I don't even go there. I mean, you know my week with the school system at the moment.
I know, you're spending so much time in the school that the rest of them think you're a teacher.
I know, yeah, I'll tell you. And I'm not going any further than that, but there you go. The joy of having kids. And, right, okay, and this something I put down on the list here. I don't know why I put it down, but I'm going to read it out anyway. Just for parents who have kids and you want to safeguard them surfing on the internet, because obviously kids will go off and do what they do. Now, there is a utility on a website called K9, and it's for protecting kids from surfing. Now, I have this software on my son's computer, and you install it and you set a password, and you obviously control what he can and can't access. And if he goes to a site that's anyway a bit dodgy, it barks, hence why it's called K9. So he has the speakers on, you know, and he's surfing the internet, and he could go to a site that's completely, you know, like YouTube is blocked, so he might go to a site and they might have a YouTube video in it, and it might just bark with that. But it's a great way to find out. It's a great way to kind of, you know, restrict them on what access they have on the internet. So K9, check it out. It's called K9. It's free. You don't have to pay for it. It's a free product. Do you want to have a chat about that one?
That one that your finger is covering.
Yeah.
The online petitions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Online petitions. Why we do not sign them? Well, I think we said this before on the show. Every so often you get these links to it. Sign this petition. You know, people are annoyed and they're overwhelmed about something, and they say, well, okay, let's start an online petition. Well, they never seem to work, and they're a great way to collect information about who is against the system. Full stop. And I think that goes without saying. If you're against the system, or you're against a change or something that's happening in society, and all of a sudden this online petition pops up out of nowhere, and maybe it's Joe Blogs has a little rant, saying, oh, I'm totally against this, and I've started this petition, and this petition is going to be printed out and it's going to be handed in to the Dáil or local politicians, whatever. So if you're like-minded like me, sign this petition. Yeah. Well, as I just mentioned, it's a great way of collecting the information of the people who are actually against whatever the petition is you know, against anyway. So we tend not to bother. As I've seen a picture on the internet, funny enough, it's on Facebook. It's like a tube station in the UK, and there's like a notice board, and it says, "Actions speak louder than like buttons." And I think that's very true. That anyone can see something on Facebook, and you can click the like button, and just by clicking the like, it's amazing. You feel like you've done something, you've kind of contributed. Well, you haven't really. I mean, to be honest, the same with signing these online petitions. I personally, I'm not speaking for Alan, I'm just speaking for me personally. I think they're a complete waste of time, and it is a way of gathering information. And we don't know, when you sign it, your IP address is recorded. You can probably stick in a comment, your email address, your name as well, if you so wish. And we don't know where it goes after that. It could be stored somewhere and used against you. I don't know, but that will be one of my fears anyway. So yeah, we kind of tend to steer away from them. And as I say, even the whole Facebook thing, you know, oh, this is terrible, blah blah. Hit the like button, like and share, and you like something, then you share it, and then you kind of feel, well, I've done something. No, you haven't actually, because actions do speak louder than words. I know maybe some people feel that when you click the button, you know, it is an action. Well, it's not really. But well, there we go. I've said my piece.
And you know them when you get these things, they have on Facebook where they say, if you agree with this, or if you whatever, like this and share it. Now I'll have to do a graphic to put, if you hate these things going around on Facebook, like it and share it. It'll be contradictory in terms. Well, I don't have time for them either. I don't actually take them.
Well, there's a good one there from Crown Copyright. Petitions in the UK are cross-referenced with electoral roll and council tax records. Sorry. There
you go. Now for the registered users on OYM, we sent out some web links today, and one of the last web links was fantastic. It was a dad with the property household charge form, and as he was ripping it, the baby, his little baby, was cracking up laughing.
Yeah.
It was very funny, and I thought, you know, that's brilliant. It's great to see that, you know. How's your week, Steve?
Well, with a little bit of sleep deprivation still going on, but I can't say about that. I just have to look in the chat room, see if my darling beloved is... No, she's not logged in. Okay. Yeah, I've had a little bit of sleep deprivation during the week for, because of the new baby. But I'm kind of starting to get back up to speed on, catching up on the links, etc., etc. And I know we were speaking last week, we mentioned the unlawful killing video in relation to Princess Diana. They're done by Keith Allen. That seems to be, it hits the internet and then it disappears off the internet. It's moving from one site to another site to another site. Well, we managed to track down a copy of said video, and I think Alan watched it, and then I only got to watch it there yesterday. But Jesus H, it is powerful information. The information contained in it, it's mind blowing is what it is. I know nothing can be done about it now, but when you read it, when you see all the information just kind of laid out in front of you, and you start joining the dots, it's mind blowing. It really is. It stinks to high heaven of a conspiracy, and not a conspiracy theory, but conspiracy fact based on the UK government and the royals in particular. But it's just amazing that the lady Diana, she actually knew her own fate. She predicted her own fate in a letter, and well, if you can get a copy of it, watch it anyway. I don't want to ruin it for anybody, but she dies in the end. That's all I can say. What else? Sandy Hook. I've been kind of checking out a few more links on the Sandy Hook thing. As I said last week, I'm sitting on the fence on this. If it did happen as it was said, then my condolences go to the families of all those kids. At the end of the day, I'm a father myself, as is Alan, and the thought of something like that happening in a school where our kids go is just unthinkable. But there's a lot more information coming up in relation to Sandy Hook, saying that some of the people involved, when they were interviewed, one minute, there's one chap, and seemingly he's in a doctor's uniform, and he's giving an interview, and then a couple of minutes later, a couple of minutes before that, he was in a high-vis jacket, had a walkie-talkie, and he was directing traffic. Now, there's two pictures going around of saying it's the same guy. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, I don't know. But there's a lot of indiscrepancies in the official story. And do you remember on 9/11 when there happened to be a kind of an exercise taking place, which is why there was no aircraft over the sky at the time, because they were doing a manoeuvre somewhere else? Well, as it turns out, that there was also manoeuvres depicting exactly what happened in Sandy Hook, and I'm not too sure exactly how far away it was, but not too far away from Sandy Hook School, there was an exact replica, kind of a training exercise going on of exactly what happened, or, well, what the media says happened in Sandy Hook. And even the local sheriff was interviewed, and he was given as kind of a speech on how terrible it was, etc., etc., etc. The local mayor was given the speech, and he was saying, how bad it was, and that he had been told that it was, to expect something like this. And so, well, if you're told to expect something like that, well, then maybe that's kind of prior knowledge. I don't know. But then the local sheriff was interviewed later, and he was mentioning that it was kind of like a training exercise, and that he was going to give a good performance. So you
see what Mick put up there?
No, I didn't. I can't see that thing without my glasses.
Okay, Mick said that he has a screen capture of a website created 4 days before Sandy Hook. It's a fundraising page, and it's since been shut down. Yeah,
I've actually seen that, Mick, and I seen the beginning of that, and to be completely honest, when the guy goes in and he looks at the website, and then the bit where he finds it on Google, I don't know, there's nothing I can't say anything about that, but when he says about the website and he goes in to view the source, the page source, and it says when the page was created, and it says it was created on the 4th of December. Well, just as an exercise, what I did was, I was looking at the page live as it was then, and this was last week, and what I did was, let's say, if you go and look at the corner of your computer now, if you're using a Windows machine, bottom right hand corner, it'll say 13/01/13, because that's today's date. Now, if you change your clock and you put that back to some date last week, and then you go to a website and then you view the source page of that website, it will say that the page was created on that date last week. So that bit where he does that, I mean, I'm not kind of convinced on that piece alone, because it's like once you change your clock, I'm sure Alan would agree, and Alan is fairly tech savvy as well, more so than me. But once you change the clock, then when you view a page, and then you for the techies out there, when you go to the source of the page, it will give you that particular date that your clock now says. But it's kind of, it's still up in the air at the moment. I'm not convinced from what I'm seeing. I'm not convinced that Sandy Hook is all that it's, you know, the media would have us believe. I still think there's a little bit more to it than that, and maybe a little bit more a little bit, you know, a bit of sinister happenings or goings on. But yeah, well, I suppose in the fullness of time we'll find out. What else is on the agenda? Organise. We were speaking about that, about the.
Do you want to talk about the water meters, the journal thing? Sorry.
I will.
Okay.
I wrote it down.
Okay.
In my own handwriting. But
I'm not used to you having more things than.
Sorry.
You normally have a list. This is new to me. Sorry.
Well, I was wondering why you were sitting there with a shocked look on your face. Sorry. But no, I was doing some more watching some more videos on the Organise that we spoke of, and if everything that I see is to be believed, it is powerful stuff, and we will not be able to get our hands on it quick enough here at OYM, because it seems that it's the answer to our prayers. It will ward off harmful radiation from telephone masts, GSM mast, also Wi-Fi, and one of the videos that I did actually see now, if I have to believe that if I get one of these the cloud busters and put it near where my electricity supply comes into the house, it will not only clean up the electricity coming in, but it will also reduce my bill. So I say, seeing is believing, and as you know, we here at OYM, we do tend to sit on the fence quite a lot, and we are going to get our hands on one, and we're going to try it. If it reduces my ESB bill, well then happy days, I'll get more of them. Last thing on my list is the water meters. Before I come out this evening, I just kind of scouting about on the internet, and it seems that all the ministers and the TDs, they're not very happy. And actually, we must touch base on that other link that's going around as well. I'll let you talk about that, the one with Joe Costello. I thought that was brilliant.
Okay, yeah.
But the water meters, seemingly, because a lot of the people here in Ireland, and we're getting told about these water meters, that you're going to have them. And there's the household charge and all. But I think half the population have said, they've put their foot down and they've said no to the household charge. And the same people are saying no to water meters, you know, and rightly so. But seemingly there's some people in our government are getting a little bit scared that the people are saying no, and they're standing by what they've said. So the IMF and the Troika, seemingly they're a little bit concerned as well, and they're basically telling their politicians, listen, this 500 million, it has to come from somewhere, and you better bloody do something. But yeah, there's a little bit of fear among the politicians that we're going to stand by our word and we're not going to pay. Well, then again, you can't get blood from a bloody stone. And the people of Ireland, we have spoke, and at the end of the day, and we did say last week, the politicians are supposed to represent the will of the people, and they're not doing that. And enough people are going to the politicians and they're telling them out straight, you're not representing us, this is what we want. And the politicians are just basically going, yeah, listen, whatever, listen, have a nice day. We're doing what we can. We're trying to get the country back on its feet, when all they're actually doing is giving themselves more increases in their pay, their wages, etc., etc. Anyway, there you go. That's my week.
Well, I had
How's your week?
How's my week? A few things. Joe Costello was on Vincent Brown. There's a video going around Facebook. It's on YouTube. And I won't go into depth with it. I mean, basically, Vincent Brown has a go at Joe Costello. And Joe Costello just comes out with some verbal diarrhea, as a politician normally does. We are a party for the people and all this crap. You know what the politicians are like. You know when they're telling a lie, when their lips are moving. So, I'm sure you'll find it on YouTube. If you type Vincent Brown, Joe Costello, you'll see it. I'll go over to TV3's website and they'll have it on their player there. You'll be able to see it. But that's all I'll say about it, because I don't have time for politicians. Like most of the people in the country. Right, okay, just talking about Organise, we were talking about Organite and the benefits of it. And I, again, like Steve, I checked out a few YouTube pages as well. And there does seem to be an awful lot of helicopters going around with these people dealing with Organite. So, very strange why helicopters all of a sudden turn up, you know.
It must be like moths to a bright light. They're attracted to the Organite, so maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Now, we did get an email in just before the show started saying about the dangers of Organite. So I sent an email back to the person. I said, well, if you have any information regarding the dangers, send it over to us, because, you know, we're open to talking on both sides of it, you know. If there's something that we don't know, let us know and we'll check it out. Now, the other thing I'm going to read out, it's a little bit of a paragraph, but I want to read it out because it basically explains the state of our judicial system here in Ireland and how unfair the system is. And the story goes that a man is in custody, this is the way it reads anyway. A man is in custody tonight in Wexford pending a court appearance in Waterford tomorrow for driving twice whilst disqualified. A very well-built middle-aged man with two Gardaí right next to him in the Wexford courtroom, left to sit in tears after being told by Judge Houghton that he was going to prison after seeing Judge Staunton in Waterford District Court tomorrow. Now get this, minutes later, while the man was sitting awaiting for a Gardaí vehicle to arrive, a female foreign national was before the courts on a charge of drink driving. She left her house last year at night after a row with her boyfriend, and it was stated by her solicitor that she had an 8-year-old son. She was disqualified for driving for 3 years. The judge, as stated, Judge Houghton, never asked where the child was the child in the car with her and her boyfriend or left alone. Also, she could have killed any child or any pedestrian or other road user that night under the influence of alcohol, and Judge Houghton did not give her a custodial sentence, but he gave the man referred to earlier in this post a 6-month sentence for being sober and driving was disqualified. This is what the Irish public are faced with daily, in particular in the district courts of Ireland, and the I'll do what I like with who, when I like and how I like it attitude exercised by these unfair, uneducated and out of control judges. I believe this warrants a complaint to the President of the District Courts, Justice Miriam Malone. And it just says, click like if you agree with comment. So there you go, click like again. And if you have an opinion, any positive input into this atrocity and unbalanced scales of justice in Ireland. Well, you know, that's really it. And a solicitor did say to me in the local district court, he said, depending on whether the judge gets out of the right side of the bed, will depend on whether you get a fine or you go to jail. So
that's unreal.
That's the system.
I mean, so he was disqualified. Come here, just really quickly. I did see something else during the week. I think you've seen it as well. And I hope it's not on the list. I hope I'm not kind of speaking out of school. But the phone call, Ben Gilroy, leader of the DDI, Director of Democracy Ireland here, he had a link up there to a phone call that was made to the tax office where a guy just basically, you seen that one, didn't you? He was just asking, could she direct him to where it says that this statute about the road tax, motor tax, actually applied to him, and you know, and your woman, she couldn't, she was helpful to a point, and she said she didn't know where he was going with the question. He clarified the question, and she then went off on another one and directed him here, there, and everywhere. He then rephrased the question, put her to a different way in relation to the acts and statutes, and she said, "Sure, why would any act apply to anybody?" And he played it again on the video, and then there's an image of a penny dropping, and it's true. When that kind of rang true to me. When you know all these acts and statutes, well, why do they apply to you? Why does an act apply to you? Why does a statute apply to you? If someone comes and says, listen, you can't be driving without a seatbelt, or you can't be driving this, or you can't do that, well, it's an act or it's a statute. Why does it apply to you?
Yeah,
I mean,
totally.
I mean, show me how it applies. It's the same like contract law, really. That's the way I'm kind of viewing it now, contract law. If someone comes up, you know, even TV license, well, you have to have a TV license. Well, show me where it says, show me somewhere where it says that I, flesh and blood man, or where I signed, or where it says that I am required to have one. Because if I'm required to have one, well then I'm not free. So therefore I must be a slave or a prisoner to somebody.
Yeah, interesting.
Sorry, just try to throw that one in.
One of the things, that's cool. One of the things that was mentioned on the United We Strike Marathon by Neil from Sovereign Independent, and I think it's a kind of good idea, we need to start labelling the mainstream media as the junk media. I mean, we shouldn't be saying we are the alternative media. We should be saying we are the new media. Because we are. More and more people are switching off the TVs. They're not buying the newspapers. The newspapers and the printed press are struggling at the moment because they're not getting the people to buy the papers. We know that the lies that they spread out, I always call it lazy journalism anyway. So Neil was mentioning the word junk media. So maybe we should, from a psychological point of view, and we've probably asked Neil about this as well, as it's all about mind control, we should be calling the media junk media, because that's what it is. It's just junk. It's pure junk. And so, let me know what your thoughts on that. But we are the new media. All the alternative websites, all the internet radio stations, the websites, and everybody kind of involved. I mean, we've no sponsors. We don't have to kowtow out to anybody. We'll give you the information the way we get it, and then you decide whether it resonates with you. And it's that simple. And that's what the media should be doing. So just an idea there. Okay, before we get Neil in, I was watching a chap on the internet called David Wayne Miller. David Wayne Miller, and he has an IQ of 200 apparently, and he was talking about a lot of the presidents being left-handed, and there's something in that for some reason. And I just have a list here. Left-handed presidents: Gerald Ford, Ronald Reagan, George H.W. Bush, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama. Now, I don't know why that is, but he just kind of pointed that out. But it was quite an interesting video. There's 25 different videos of him talking, and the information he's talking about is quite good, but quite in-depth as well, all about who we are and, the whole big picture. But anyway, without further ado, let's bring our guest in and let's talk about mind control and all things related to it. Good evening, Neil. How are you doing?
Hi, man. I'm very well, thanks. How are you guys?
Not too bad. Thanks for coming on, Neil. Appreciate it. Now, you were on the show last year, and we went through all the kind of loads of bits and pieces about mind control, and we're kind of a year down the line now. Now, the things that we want to kind of cover, I was watching you were being interviewed by Richard D. Hall on Controversial TV, and you got into the Jimmy Savile stuff and the mind control and everything related, and you pointed out a few things about the Max Clifford thing as well. And I think what we'd like to do is kind of, as that's a topic at the moment and quite hot on the printing press at the moment, it's still there and it's still resonating with people of what's going on. Can you kind of give us an insight of what you found out in your own research? Obviously, everything's allegedly for whatever reason, because, just in case, you know yourself, Neil, the way these things work. So,
yeah.
So, but
well, I mean, the mainstream sort of view of it is that Jimmy Savile, throughout his career, he's been exposed by a couple of boys that were connected to a care home in Wales, and this sort of opened a can of worms. And over the past 40 years, due to his incredible influence and the fact that everyone thought he was such a nice guy, doing charity work and everything, Jimmy Savile was seemingly able to go around places like Stoke Mandeville and Dartmoor Prison and various hospitals and Great Ormond Street Hospital and various care homes and orphanages and schools for troubled children and this sort of thing, and essentially have sex with children whenever and as often as he wanted. There seems to be some discrepancy as to whether anybody knew about it or whether he just managed to sort of evade the gaze of everybody else. That's the mainstream view of it. That's about 30% correct, as far as I can see. What it appears to be, what it certainly appears to be, is that Jimmy Savile is one celebrity that was connected to a broader paedophile ring, and what it certainly seems to be is that the care home in Wales, certainly that one, and probably dozens of others, certainly dozens of others, are actually involved in intelligence agency style operations whereby the children are used either for the pleasure of celebrities and politicians, or as a blackmail device. They're essentially used as like a brothel that's wide for sound with hidden cameras and that sort of thing. Foreign dignitaries, foreign spies, people of influence, people within industry, people within the entertainment industry are offered these children, no questions asked, and then a video is shown to them saying basically, look, we've got you on tape doing this. Do you want to do exactly what we say, or would you like to go to prison for the rest of your life?
Yeah, that's about the height of it. And I think at the moment with people being exposed, we just had a little chat before we went live, that there are a couple of red herrings being thrown out, as well as scapegoats to cover the higher echelons of what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all of these celebrities that have been... I mean, people are getting bored of it, actually. Like, that I talk about it. Like, they're like, you're still harping on about Jimmy Savile. It's done, you know. We know, you know, it's... Who cares? I'm bored of it now, to be quite honest. And that's exactly what they're doing. They're going to throw some people at you that have done things that, absolutely should have been picked up years and years ago. They're going to be some people that basically... It's expected of them because they're persona non gratis, like Gary Glitter. Some people that basically they're gonna sort of soften it off with people like Dave Lee Travers and maybe even Jim Davidson. What they're gonna do is show that, oh no, this is getting ridiculous now because look, some very, very light infringements that, well, reprehensible as though they are, they're all getting dragged into it, and it's all just to basically scatter your. It's a distraction technique like a magician would use. You're looking in all these different directions. There's some that are connected to it. But what's really clever about the whole thing as well is that they're being very, very clear that everybody that's being arrested or taken in for questioning, Max Clifford, Freddie Starr, Jim Davidson, all of these people, they're in the category of other, which means that they're not actually connected to the Jimmy Savile case. And what that does as well, it's like, aside from the distraction thing, it reinforces this false paradigm that Jimmy Savile was an entity in and of himself that managed to sort of coerce government and royalty and all these sort of care home agencies and all these hospitals and charitable organisations for his own personal benefit. And that's not that. It would be impossible for that to happen. It would be absolutely impossible for nobody in high positions to know that this was happening. And basically, there are other... Cyril Smith was one person that came out that basically this sort of came out for a few days and then again people got bored of it. Wilfred Bramble, who was the guy in Steptoe, he was also exposed to be abusing children in these care homes. The interesting thing about these cases, in a lot of, certainly with the Cyril Smith element, is that it was well known. Rotherham local newspapers, other magazines like Private Eye were trying to expose this, and despite the fact that it was well known, it was well known to the police, it was well known to the intelligence agencies, for some unknown reason, Cyril Smith certainly, and no doubt others, were allowed to act with impunity and get away with it again and again and again, and were seemingly protected by the intelligence agencies and by the judicial system, in as much as essentially their lawyers came down on anybody that approached it like a ton of bricks and basically you print this again and that's it, it's curtains for your organisation.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the trouble. They're so well protected. Now, Jimmy Savile was apparently a member, allegedly, of the Knights of Malta. So is Prince Edward, and he obviously, you know, if you're on that level, I mean, there's loads of photos of them together and being on, you know, Jimmy Savile visiting their holiday retreats and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And when you're on that level, you're going to be protected because, you know, the example is, let's look at Max Clifford, the PR extraordinaire in the UK. Now, I can see from Max Clifford's point of view, there's a lot of people kind of shaking in the boots at the moment, because when Max Clifford takes you on, and this is the way I think he did an interview about how he goes through the whole process. So this is not like, you know, I think you, as a PR person, you'd want to go through this anyway with your clients. So somebody approaches Max Clifford and says, I want you to represent me in the PR game and get me out there. And Max says to them, well, you're going to have to tell me everything, even all your dirty secrets. Yeah. Because if you don't tell me and it gets out, I can't protect you. So you're going to have to tell me. So as the celebrities are reeling out all the dirty secrets, Max has a little back book and he just writes them down, you know. And I mean, they're probably, there's a lot of celebrities when he was mentioned and he was on in the press and on the news. But there's probably a lot of celebrities now shaking in the boot saying, I wonder if he's going to say anything.
Well, this is the thing, Max Clifford, that's what he's paid to do. He's paid to keep stories out of the press, essentially. So I made a mistake earlier. It's actually Rochdale, not Rotherham, that was connected to Cyril Smith. Just briefly, before we go on to Max Clifford, just to tie it back to Jimmy Savile and what you said about the top echelon. I'm not entirely sure that this is true, but I've heard this, that Jimmy Savile was essentially, and Alan Freeman apparently, was sponsored by the Cray twins in their early days. Now, what's interesting about the Cray twins is the Cray twins basically finally came a cropper when it was exposed that one of them was having an affair with somebody in the House of Lords. Ron was having an affair with somebody in the House of Lords. What was hidden behind that was that essentially the Crays seemed to be distributing, maybe even running a child sex ring. Essentially, some of the rent boys that Ron was getting into contact with, he was passing off to certain other people within the House of Lords. Whether that is a euphemism for a child sex ring, and when this was possibly exposed, they outdid their usefulness and then were put in prison, I don't know. The other thing is that I just wanted to mention was that when the Haute Le Grand thing came out, Jimmy Savile, for whatever reason, posted a statement saying that I've never been there. It's tragic, but I've never actually been there. And then immediately, all over the internet, there's this picture of him at Haute Le Grand on the lawn, surrounded by dozens of children, with an oversized Jimmy will Fix It badge there, which is pretty damning, to be honest. But
there's the evidence.
So going back to Max Clifford, this is the thing, that Max Clifford is a fixer. There are loads and loads of varying degrees of seriousness, hidden camera things that have been caught with Max Clifford talking about celebrities. In some cases they're sort of bleeped out, in some cases they're not. And the sorts of things that he does is essentially he hides affairs, he pays off pregnant girls, he'll pay off people to shut up and not take their stories to the press. He arranges things for celebrities. One thing that he admitted to, although he didn't actually tell who the celebrity was there's a certain very famous Hollywood star that apparently likes to go and watch his own films in a public cinema, and he gets so excited by it that he can't help but play with himself. And he's almost got in trouble with the police over this a couple of times. So what Max Clifford does is he arranges, unbeknownst to the Hollywood star, for 20 guys to follow him at all times, and if he goes into a cinema, they sit in a semicircle around him so that nobody ever finds out about his little peccadillo. That's one of the mild things that Max Clifford does. One of the things that I really, really wanted to talk about on Rich Planet, but I didn't get a chance to do this because we basically ran out of time. There's a video flying around on the internet at the minute. I don't think it's on YouTube, I think it's on Vimeo. Again, hidden camera thing with Max Clifford. He's being interviewed by a prospective client, in inverted commas. And essentially one of the things that he starts boasting about is his success in turning a potential disaster with the MP, the Conservative MP Alan Clarke, into a PR, into a wonderful PR opportunity. Now, what happened was essentially, numerous times Alan Clarke was caught having affairs. He was a bit of a Lothario. That's the kindest thing you can say about him. He was a bit of a Lothario. And he was often exposed, and he was sort of one of the sort of proponents, you know, this sort of classic teary-eyed at the garden gate with the wife, I'm very, very sorry, and blah, 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 blah. He was one of the sort of really famous people for doing that a lot, because he was getting caught out all the time. According to this Max Clifford interview, what it seems to infer is a couple of things. Firstly, that the Clarkes had an open relationship, so basically his wife did not care that he was having affairs. In fact, she found it very amusing because it got her publicity, and it helped her in a financial sense because it brought her opportunities and, again, publicity for her various business enterprises and the like. It also was great for Alan Clarke because there's no such thing as bad publicity within reason. Because it brought attention to him, and his book sales went through the roof. He wrote diaries of his time in Parliament. The other thing, the incredibly unsavoury thing that Max Clifford just bandies off is that and this is Max Clifford's words, this is the only slightly unsavoury thing about the whole incident, was that Anna was interfering with these girls, both these girls, from the age of 14. And then he justifies that by saying, but they didn't care. By the time we got to trial, they were all so interested in money that the parents fell out with the kids and they all got into a huge row on television, so basically that never came out, so that was fine. That's monstrous. That is absolutely monstrous.
It's incredible how deep the rabbit hole goes and what goes on. Now, I know that, again, we'll say allegedly, but I've heard it, and it's been in the news, that Simon Cowell pays Max Clifford to keep things out of the newspaper as well.
Oh, he paid him $250,000. This was in the what's his name? Louis Theroux. In the Louis Theroux documentary, Simon Cowell paid for about 5 years, I think, paid Max Clifford £250,000 pounds a year. Now, it's not simply just to keep things out of the papers, although that is definitely an aspect of it. He's basically there to build him a profile as well, because that's the point about Max Clifford. Max Clifford is a kingmaker. It's very strange. Essentially, like Max Clifford and certain other people that you never get to hear about, they can make or break an artist. Exactly like you say, you basically tell them all your secrets, and they say, give me X amount of money, and I will make you X amount of money back. And that's how it works. That's how the entertainment industry works. People are made and destroyed on the behest of certain people within in the entertainment industry. But then you've got to look at it like it's a very incestuous back and forth with people, and this is why essentially certain people, certain stereotypes, certain types of artists are pushed forward, and other people are basically pushed back, because again there's an agenda. You could argue that it's not as cynical as that basically it's, well, we know what will sell, so we will continue to sell it, but I would argue that it's far, far worse than that. It's because the industry, from top to bottom, is rotten. It's absolutely rotten. This exploitation of people, manipulation of the facts, paedophilia in the music industry, paedophilia in Hollywood, paedophilia in the stage school, paedophilia in sporting institutions, both in the UK and America, and no doubt all over the world. And before long, you start to realise that actually this is all connected in some way. There's some reason that this same scenario plays out again and again and again and again throughout different sort of strata of society and throughout completely seemingly unrelated elements of society.
It is incredible how systemic this is in the actual, all through different levels of society now. We did an interview with Ted Gunderson probably January 2 years ago now. The poor guy has passed on. He died of cancer, but he was a gentleman, and the ex-head of the FBI, Los Angeles. And if people want to hear what's going on, he mentions Hollywood and the satanic abuse and abuse of kids. And amazing interview we did with him and the information he had. So I'd recommend that that if anybody wants to pop over to the archives and download that and listen to it.
One of the things that Ted exposed was the Finders. The Finders group. He talked about a lot of sort of child sex rings, and McMartin preschool trial as well, which everybody should go out there and Google. He actually exposed, essentially, briefly, the McMartin preschool trial was like a kindergarten-style preschool thing, and the children were complaining of satanic rituals, sexual abuse. They were exhibiting signs, physical and mental signs of sexual abuse, including sexually transmitted diseases. And what they were claiming was that they were being taken by the teachers through underground tunnels to areas in the California hills, I believe it was, and being forced to do sex acts, watch ritual sacrifices, and participate in satanic ritual, including sort of being made to eat feces and drink urine and kill animals and muck about with the viscera of dead babies and stuff like that. And of course this was poo-pooed by a number of people, chiefly Shirley and Paul Eberly, who wrote a book about it, claiming that all the kids were lying. They appeared on Oprah Winfrey and numerous other shows. What they don't tell you is that both of them are convicted paedophiles. Both their kids exposed them as doing this. They also used to run a magazine that catered specifically to necrophilic, paedophilic tendencies. So I don't think those two people are to be trusted. The other people that came in was the False Memory Syndrome Foundation, which is run by, I think it was Singer, who was accused of being a paedophile, Jolly West, who was an MK Ultra doctor, Martin Orne, who was an MK Ultra hypnotist, and Ralph Untermeyer. Ralph Untermeyer was eventually sacked from the organisation because he went in. He did interviews with Dutch paedophile magazines claiming that rape was actually good for children and that paedophilic activities had no lasting effects on children. So this is the organisation that is there to poo-poo the children that come out with these statements. Is intimately connected with the intelligence agencies and intimately connected with mind control techniques. It's also intimately connected with paedophiles, so it has a vested interest in covering up paedophile activities. Ted Gunderson basically went there and exposed that these tunnels did exist. This was never allowed as evidence into trial because apparently the trial had started and new evidence was not allowed to be exhibited, but the case was proven out. That they'd been filled in very recently, and this was proven by receipts that were found in the dirt that were dated from only a few days prior. That's one of the things that you discovered. The finders is another thing. Ted Gunderson was absolutely excellent. I had the pleasure of talking to him on a few occasions. Not only was he excellent, he was an absolute gentleman as well. The finders was a case where essentially a group of children were found in, I forget exactly where in America, I think it was Texas, because I think it was near the Mexico border. But they were found running around feral in a park, and basically this alerted police, and it transpired that these kids were living in the back of a van with two men. And they all claimed that they were being taken to Mexico to a school for brilliant children. And it became very, very clear that basically these kids were only given food as a reward for certain activities that they performed and such like that. When this was traced back to several sites, one in Texas, one in Mexico, and it was found that pictures of these children and hundreds of others were found on hard drives loaded up onto paedophile networks. There was intimation of drug smuggling, there was intimation of child sex rings, and these kids were essentially being transported. Now, this was shut down by the CIA themselves. The CIA shut this investigation down basically because, and this is the exact quote from the investigation, it was an internal concern. It was an internal concern. Now let me just explain exactly what that means. That means that the Finders organisation, which was using children to smuggle drugs and being used as sex slaves for elite paedophiles all over the world, was being run by the CIA. They admitted this and shut down their investigation. Those are the two brilliant things that Ted Gunderson exposed. Also, the satanic murder of Jeffrey McDonald's family as well, which people should probably have a look at as well. But yeah, Ted was great. Ted was really good.
Yeah, there's one or two people on the internet saying, Ted was supposed to be a shill, but to be honest with you, we interviewed him, and he was just a gentleman. And if you actually seen his work, you can't fault what he was doing. But I'll tell you what, we need to talk about mind control, but I'm going to pass you over to Steve. Steve has a number of questions come in from our listeners, so I'll pass it over to Steve and take it from there.
Okay. Hello. I have three questions. Three good questions. First one is from Kelt. Kelt is wondering, can you ask Neil if he ever heard anything about EU Commission and Marc, I'm going to get this wrong, Marc Dutreux in Belgium?
Marc Dutreux. Well, I actually speak a little bit about Marc Dutreux on the recent Rich Planet interview. Marc Dutreux was a Belgian serial killer. Very, very strange case. The long and the short of it was he was found to have a secret chamber beneath his house, whereby he could surreptitiously film children that he had kidnapped. There are lots of very, very strange elements to the Marc Dutroux cases. It looks very much like not only was there a cover-up by the Belgian authorities, more so, it looks like the Belgian authorities or the Belgian intelligence agency set this bloke up to be in a position to do what he was doing. He was let out of prison after 3 years into a 20-year sentence, I believe it was, for the abduction and rape of 5 women. As soon as he was released, his psychiatrist said, "Don't release him. He's completely dangerous." As soon as he was released, his mother phoned up and said he's constructing a jail cell in his house, and I believe that he's got kidnapped children there. The police ignored this. What happened was essentially They were filming his house, but they decided that for cost-cutting exercises, they would only film from 9 to 5. So when it got dark, when it was an opportunity to go out and kidnap people, they turned off their surveillance. Essentially, this was called Operation Othello, and this was, I forget, it was the gendarmerie, that was it, which is a higher echelon of the police. They basically sort of stepped in, and it was a gentleman called René Michaud, and he was there to take over this investigation. Essentially what happened was 2 children went missing. The police poo-pooed the parents' rage as they got a private investigator, and within about 24 hours he says, "I think the girls are actually in Marc Dutreux's house." René Michaud basically went into the property with an electrician. The electrician said that he could hear children in the basement. René Michaud shouted, "Silence!" There was silence, and then he chastised the electrician and told everybody to leave the area. That's one strange thing. Another strange thing is that he seized a series of videotapes, some of them showing him torturing the girls, and some of them showing him constructing the chamber in which the girls were kept. These tapes were never watched by René Michaud because, and this, you'll like this, the Gendarmerie of Belgium did not have a video player. That was the excuse for it. 30 material witnesses died before this went to court, either suicide or mysterious accidents. And what it came out was essentially that Marc Dutreux was catering kids for an elite sex ring. Some of the children actually survived, and they gave very, very detailed testimony. Talking about details of murders that were previously unsolved in Belgium, giving details that were never released to the public, that could only have been discovered if they were actually present at the murders. So, these are genuine witnesses. These were all thrown in prison, thrown in mental asylums and such like that. The people that were involved in this sex ring with him were a businessman called Michel Nehul, who was actually acquitted. He's like a sort of Richard Branson type figure in Belgium. His wife, who was a teacher, whose name was Michel Martin, and a French politician and businessman called Bernard Weinstein. And basically surviving witnesses also told stories about other celebrities, well-known celebrities within Belgium. It's almost identical to the scenario. There's certain elements that are identical to the scenario that's going on with the Jimmy Savile, Alan Bryn Erskine case that's going on. And essentially, it very nearly caused a revolution in Belgium. There was a complete general strike and a protest on the streets of Belgium because people were so incensed that this was an obvious cover-up. He was allowed to escape once. He was very nearly allowed to escape twice. And again, the actual real elements of the case were never, ever investigated. I believe there was a paedophile ring in Latvia that was connected to Marc Dutroux. So this is an international concern. And then again, these are sort of wealthy businessmen, the elites of society, politicians, celebrities, and they do transgress national borders. They transport children. Johnny Gosch turned up in Russia. Johnny Gosch was a paperboy that was Des Moines, Iowa. He was kidnapped, reportedly by Paul Benassi, reportedly on the orders of Michael Aquino, who is the highest-ranking military officer in the NSA. Okay, and he was sold to a Russian paedophile ring. So this whole thing it's ludicrous. It's absolutely incredible in its span. And I think that's why basically you're never really going to hear the whole story.
It absolutely, from what you've said there, it stinks to high heaven, and cover up after cover up after cover up. I mean, it'll obviously, it could go on for a long time, and we'd still never know the full ins and outs of the whole thing. Is the second question, Neil, is from, and the next two questions actually, it's kind of going back to the paedophilia thing that we spoke of. Lord Vapor is wondering, is the so-called royal family involved? Now, maybe we should probably rephrase that question. In your opinion, or in what you've seen, do you think that the royal family may be involved?
Well, one thing I know for a fact is that Prince Andrew's good friend Jeffrey Epstein, was a business concern of his, and he is an indicted paedophile, and he was again running children across the border. Mysteriously, his houses in Malibu and his houses in Mexico were wired for sound. He entertained these young girls, some as young as 14. He gave them jobs as personal masseuses, and he was basically pimping these girls out with the help of Ghislaine Maxwell. Now, one of these girls, Virginia Roberts, met Prince Andrew on numerous occasions. For legal reasons, you must say that there was no intimation that Prince Andrew had sex with any of these kids, but he certainly must have been aware that Jeffrey Epstein was. Jeffrey Epstein, as I say, has been involved in a number of sex scandals involving children. Some he paid off, some he's actually been to prison for. But again, the interesting thing is, just like in the intelligence agency scenarios, they were using these underage children for blackmail purposes. He was definitely a friend of Prince Andrew. Jimmy Savile, I mean, he certainly seems to be very connected to the royal family. You know, he received a knighthood, obviously. He seemed to sort of bounce around all these people. There's loads and loads of photographs of him with Prince Charles, hanging out in, at leisure activities. I believe he was also a guest of Margaret Thatcher, often a guest of Margaret Thatcher, so he certainly seemed to bounce around with these high echelons of people. Yeah, he was involved with the royal family. I don't know to what extent, and I'm sure that nobody will ever know, but he probably wants to be investigated. One of the things that was said was that two things that were said. It was one, that he, for some reason, acted somewhat as a mediator between Diana and Charles when they were having their marriage troubles, which I'm not entirely sure why. And the other thing is that he apparently was involved in providing guests for royal parties. Again, I don't know what that means. Is that a euphemism for something unsavoury? Or, even if it wasn't, why was he trusted so very, very much by the royal family? As we know, they're very sort of... They don't invite outsiders, do they? So it's certainly very, very strange.
Steve?
Sorry. I'll just say it kind of wrapped up in that reply. So we'll never really know, I mean, unless they're investigated, and the chance of that happening, I mean, as I mentioned earlier... I seem to remember there was a dead teenage girl found on the royal grounds. When was it? Was it last Christmas or something like that? That was unusual. I mean, obviously, we don't know what happened, but I tell you what, if there's a dead 17-year-old girl found in my garden, questions would be asked. Absolutely. Well, I mean, as was said on that documentary in relation to the unlawful documentary, Keith Allen, about Diana, they were saying that exactly what you just said there, that if something had happened and there was evidence kind of pointing in one direction, if that evidence was not explored, then questions would be asked. And as was also said, that people who were named, after that Diana died, and if her name, as they said in the documentary, if her name had been Diana Murphy, and evidence had come to light that her husband, Charlie Murphy, had, she suspected him of maybe going to bump her off, that evidence will be brought to light, and Mr. Murphy will be brought in for questioning. But yeah, I mean, the likes of Charles, he was never brought in for questioning, and I'm sure in all these other cases as well, that the people who are high up, as we said earlier, a lot of kind of junk will be thrown out there to throw people off the scent. And you know yourself, you throw enough crap at people, and eventually they do get bored. We're a nation of people who get bored very easy, thanks to all these thousands of TV channels. We channel stuff, we get bored very easy. So yeah, the whole paedophilia thing, it's bouncing around at the moment. I think, personally speaking, truthers like ourselves and yourself and other people, we're still trying to investigate it and find out more. But I think the general population, I think they've kind of reached saturation point where it's who else now? Yeah, okay, whatever. What's next? You know,
Yeah.
I think, you know, we will never really find out how high it goes, but I suppose that's just the way the spin doctors have it. You know, they have it engineered that way that we will never find out.
Oh, absolutely. And then again, sort of tying in with the Max Clifford thing, the people who've got the most stage-managed public persona in the entire world is the British royal family.
Yep.
Nobody knows what they're really like. Everybody, oh, I love them. Oh, I think they're great. Oh, isn't that wonderful? You don't know what goes on. Like, nobody knows what goes on. Prince Philip's sisters married SS officers. Prince Philip was educated at an SS school. These are not nice people. East India Tea Company, look it up.
Yeah.
They made their money selling smack.
Yeah, they've been involved in quite a bit, and a lot of stuff we probably don't know. But I want to talk about one more question, is it?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Jen.
Last question. This is from Clara, a good friend of OYM. Clara wants to know: can you ask Neil? This is in relation to MEPs? Does he think this is a massive smokescreen? This is again about the paedophilia. Also, to revert the attention of the masses away from the requests in the past to have MEPs investigated. There have been demands in Parliament to have politicians investigated months ago, and not a mention of any progress since.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know with specifically to the MEPs, but certainly yes, absolutely. I mean, like, as you say, Cyril Smith was named. Peter Morrison has been named. Peter Morrison was an aide to Margaret Thatcher. Peter Morrison was apparently so well known as a paedophile that Edwina Currie felt the need to basically say to people, is it wise to have this great big paedophile so close to the Prime Minister at this time? And she recorded this in her memoir, so she wasn't shy about people knowing about this. But undoubtedly, that's the point of the celebrity angle to it, and undoubtedly that's the point about how it is being stage managed with the Jimmy Savile, is to steer away from the concept that other politicians are involved. There was that article in the magazine Scallywag that named several politicians, who some of them who are still serving as politicians, none of whom sued at the time, and There was about 5 that he actually named, so that's available online. People should probably have a read of it. I'm not saying that it's absolutely factual, but they did say that they would back up their opinions in court. So, yeah, and it's not unusual for... if you go to the intelligence agency scenario, the sort of people that you might entwine in this sort of scandal using children would be politicians. So... yes, it could well be a smokescreen to hide. Undoubtedly, it is some. I forget who it was that said it, but basically, somebody said if you see something in politics, it's because you've meant to see it. Okay, this is the point. Like, whatever's come out, we've meant to see it. Maybe a couple of things have slipped through the radar. The fact that basically Jimmy Savile was sleeping with dead bodies, and then it was quickly like shuffled off and stuff like that. But, you know, yeah, undoubtedly it's there to cover up something far, far worse. And I just think that it is really to cover up the fact that this particular care home was probably being used by MI5. I don't know exactly who was using it, but probably by certainly some element of British intelligence agencies.
Yeah, well, just my last comment on that.
Okay.
Right, I think Neil is definitely on the money there when he says, I mean, that if we do see something, it's because we're meant to see it. That there's obviously a hell of a lot of that does go on that we will never know about. I mean, that's what, like, you've done some research, and we've seen a lot of stuff, we've heard a lot of stuff, we spoke to a lot of people who've given us information. But the general public, if they were to actually see how deep some of this crap actually goes, they will be overwhelmed and probably just blow their mind.
They'd be shocked. Well, my concern really is we are getting a lot of information from the UK and what's going on over there, but over here in the Irish media and the press, we're not hearing anything. Like, literally nothing. Now, that kind of concerns me because, you know, we have all these people in entertainment and politicians and stuff like that. Now, I'm not going to cast any dispersions on anybody, but, you know, you're always going to get bad apples in the barrel, and that's a fact. But we haven't heard any stories, unless somebody out there has heard information that we haven't heard. But we haven't heard anything about entertainers and politicians and business people and people in the media.
Not yet.
Not yet. But I mean, literally nothing. I mean,
Yeah.
literally nothing.
Yeah, but I mean, let's put it this way. Let's say, for argument's sake, something happens in the government, and let's say the household charge or the water meters, let's say that's coming to a head, for argument's sake. What better way to diffuse that and get the people to look somewhere else while a little bit of sleight of hand goes on?
Oh, of course.
Throw something like that in the media over here.
Yeah. Well, what people have to understand as well, and Neil, you'll understand this as well, that when these people, a lot of these people are mega rich, okay? And when you have an estimated fortune of 50, 100 million, whatever, you can have anything and go anywhere you want. You can get bored very easily. So you need new kicks. And that's why Aleister Crowley in the early 1900s was a full-time Satanist. And he used to go to meet royals and have his little occultic meetings and everything else. Because it was a new kick for them. It was something new. And I'm sure the music business in the 60s, there's mention of certain rock stars going to the parties with royals and things going on and everything else. I won't mention any names. I just want to make a correction, by the way, that I mentioned Knights of Malta and Prince Edward. It was actually Prince Philip I was talking about, not Prince Edward. Just a slight correction there. So my concern would be about nothing happening over here. But I think what we need to do is let's talk about your books and what your books involve, what you've put in them, and what you've gone through, and a bit more about the mind control and about how we are manipulated as people and how we are controlled.
Sure. I mean, both. It's split into two volumes. It's called Your Thoughts Not Your Own, and you can get it from either richplanet.net or you can get it from my website, which is www.neilsandersmindcontrol.com. So it's two volumes. The first volume details the origins of mind control, who was behind it, what their aims were, all the declassified documents, who were the doctors involved, what were they able to do, the different methods, the different drugs, the different types of mind-controlled people that they were able to achieve. Then it goes on to look at psychotronics and the use of external devices, implants, victims, admitted victims, people who were potential victims and possible assassins like Sirhan. And then the first volume winds up looking at the sort of connection between the Phoenix operation, which was used in Vietnam as a sort of terror campaign against the civilians, and it was utilized sort of incredibly gory scenarios whereby the CIA or elements within the CIA would sneak into a place, decimate the people that were there, and then go away. And essentially they'd kill, rather than killing the sort of main players in the Viet Cong or generals or people like that, they'd kill their wives and children to demoralize them and basically to warn off other people from like taking up arms. And I make a comparison between that and serial killers, because essentially as soon as that finished and William Colby, who was the head of the CIA and was running the operation, came back to America, that's when the main sort of serial killers started, with remarkably similar scenarios, and basically a lot of these serial killers you find have had military training or have actually been involved in MK Ultra style testing. The second volume looks at mass control. It looks at advertising, creation of brands, how advertising can trick you, the way that shopping centres and that sort of thing are laid out in a intentionally confusing manner. It then looks at the entertainment industry. It looks at film and music and television and how that can be used. It looks at the news media and how that is used as a coercive tool. It looks at sort of social control and how that can be applied through school and just through sort of social mores and stuff like that. And then that winds up talking about the music industry and the incredibly strange number of musicians that have got connections to the military-industrial complex, the CIA, that sort of thing. And then I talk about the Haight-Ashbury LSD hippie explosion and how all the main players within that actually have got ties to the intelligence agencies along with the music, and how the entire thing was essentially one big mind control program, an experiment on human beings, and utilizing youth movements to move them away from politics and into drugs, essentially. And everything's all referenced. If I've referenced quite a few other books. Dave McGowan is a brilliant researcher that I've sort of will point people in his direction. Jim Keith, Colin Ross, these people are absolutely fantastic. And I've referenced all the sort of documents as well, so you can sort of look it up, you can check it out, you can go and do some further research and such like that. And and they're available now if people want to buy them.
Excellent. Okay, and you have a rough price? What's the price?
Well, they're £15 each, and then there's obviously postage, and so you can get them from either from my website, which is neilsandersmindcontrol.com, or you can get them from Rich Planet. But there is a lot of information in there, a real lot. I'd say it's doing quite well, actually. Sold quite a few, and people have been very happy with it so far. People that have come back with some very nice comments, so that's good to know. And thank you to everybody that's bought it, and thank you to everybody that may buy it.
Okay.
Neil, just a quick question from someone who would take some half a lifetime to read a book. Is it available on audio book by any chance?
Not yet. I hope to get it out in a sort of e-format at some point this year. But it's only literally, it's not been out for very long. It became available just before Christmas. So, not yet. Hopefully, maybe do an audio book. I might try and tap Stephen Fry or somebody up to do that. That'd be good.
No, I think an audio book is
not really.
Well, you never know.
But yeah, certainly I'm going to try and get a Kindle thing coming out, or an e format.
Well, I tell you, just me personally, and Alan knows this. Alan's a reader. He will digest books quicker than he'd eat his dinner. But me, I mean, I'm a very slow book reader. However, I have got a great education. It takes me an hour to drive to work and an hour to drive home, and I've kind of downloaded audiobooks on various different subjects and would listen to them on the CD going in and out working the car, and that's kind of where I'm getting my education. And I know your books would be are very interesting and education, and would open up a lot of people's minds. And for the non-readers, I think it will be a must to have it on audio CD, definitely.
Well, I was just certainly looking into that. It's interesting you say that. I mean, that's one of the things is because music and the reason that you do that is because it's not only talking to your conscious mind, it's talking to your subconscious mind. That's the best. If anyone's doing any exams now, read the book, obviously, right? Okay, but then go and get the book on tape, because you will know the story more. It sits in your subconscious. This is why people know the words to songs, and the words to jingles, and the words to catchphrases and stuff like that, even if you've not subconsciously been watching it. In fact, in some cases, given the right scenario, not paying attention to it actually embeds the message more than if you were paying close attention to it.
It's amazing how the mind works. I mean, from my background, this is of interest to me, and as a kind of trainer as well. There's different people have different ways that they learn, or they like to learn. Now, the one thing I've come across, Neil, I don't know whether you've come across this, is that we talked about, Steve turned around and said, well, I'm not a reader, I don't read books. And I did a little kind of unofficial survey a few years ago, and the kind of information that came back from it was that the majority of women will read, but the majority of men won't read. And I don't know why that's the case. But there's more women who will read and very few men. And basically that's just in a survey of people I know in my circle, family, friends and stuff like that, and saying, do you read? And the majority of women say, yeah, well, I'll read a book. And the majority of men say, no, don't have time for doing that, won't read a book. So having the audio book is, and maybe that's the problem. Maybe, people don't read. It's very easy. We had Luke Radosky on our show, on the video. We did the video, and he's on a YouTube channel. And Luke said that people are getting so dumbed down now that if you don't, it has to be on video. If it's not on video, you very rarely have people reading it unless they really, really want to read it. He said you're better off putting everything on video because it's easy just to sit down and watch a video rather than go through page and page of text,
Well, I think the thing is, there's a number of reasons why that is. People will read if you tell them to read. Like, okay, some genius managed to convince the entire population of the planet to go out and buy 50 Shades of Grey. Like, that was incredibly clever marketing campaign. It was done in the best way. How it was sold was, you heard about this? It was sold as if it was an organic thing. Everybody heard about it from somebody and somebody and somebody and somebody and somebody. And then, after that, when the hype was there, it was so impressive that some people said, I know it's the hype. I'm not going to buy it because I'm falling for the hype. I'm buying it in an ironic way. And I'm going to read it in an ironic way. You're still buying the book, so people will buy the book. And loads of people read that twaddle. It's garbage. But you can get people to buy things if you want. But I think that's absolutely right. I think there is a dumbing down effect. There's also a thing called cultivation theory, which is essentially that, like, television, because obviously television is the most popular medium. Gardner and Gross, who are these two psychologists, essentially did this sociological study and found that the people that watch a lot of television come to believe the world as is presented in television more than reality. They'll basically they'll be more fearful because a lot of the things are dour and sort of violent on television. They'll be sort of more convinced that that's the way that the world is, and they'll also take on the values of the television world. One of the things that I talk about all the time is EastEnders uses the concept of, right, Peggy comes downstairs at the beginning of an episode. She doesn't say anything. She just walks into the bar. She gets herself a double vodka. She bangs it back and puts the glass down and then just stares into space. What do we know, right? With our savvy decoding of that, we know something's up with Peggy. Peggy's not in a happy state. She's obviously so depressed that she needs to take a double vodka. Right, let's wind that back in our brain. If we're depressed, we could act like the people on television and have a double vodka. I feel depressed. What is the learnt response to depression? Bang back a double vodka. So that's one of the things. When was the last time... Who reads books on television? What sort of characters read books on television? Not the sexy heroes, I'll tell you that. Like, and if they do it in a montage...
Yeah, well, it's like, one of the things that I'm kind of, one of my pet subjects is psychology in relationships, and it's one of the things that I've been looking into, and I was talking to somebody about this, is about this whole, on the female side. I know we're moving away from mind control, but in a way it is to a certain extent.
Of
where,
course, yeah, no, it's social control. This is the thing. This is that people don't understand.
Yeah,
that all of these rules and regulations and sort of learnt behaviour and sort of, I know that this is the way it is. Take a step back. Where did you hear that? Who benefits from that? Why is this the social norm? Why is this not? Like, people don't seem to understand that everything is a conceptual idea that has been constructed. Yeah, even the concept of beauty, no one will buy this because basically, I know what I like, blah 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 blah. It's not strictly true. If you go to certain other countries, Fiji, perhaps Hawaii, the concept of the beautiful woman is not the size 0 model that we see on our television. So, why is that? Is it something to do with the air down there? Or is it that's a cultural thing, it's a learned thing, you learn from your peers. Like, you know, that's why a lot of people will go, that's stupid. How many times have you basically turned down a girl or something like that not because you didn't fancy her, but because you thought your mates would take the mickey out of you for it?
Well, look,
that's powerful.
Yeah. I've got one for you here, Neil, and I was telling Steve the other day about this, and you tell me what psychology you get from this and the mind control, right? I kind of had my own kind of bit in the background. I woke up during the week. Sometimes you wake up during the night and you can't get back asleep, and so I say, I'll put on the TV and just see what's on. And there was this documentary on Channel 4 called The Naked Office. Now this is on about 2 or 3 in the morning, so a lot of people probably haven't seen it, right? But they got this.
Alan's now setting his alarm to watch it every night.
Yeah, I'll be watching it every night. But it was this business psychologist goes to this company is up in the north of England, was struggling. They had to let people go and business wasn't great. And they got this business psychologist from London. And he came up, he said, right, we're going to be doing an experiment, da-da-da-da. He said, at the end of the week, everybody in the office has to be naked. right? And of course, all the jaws drop on the ground. What do you mean? There's about 9 people in the office, 2 women and the rest men. So he goes through the reasons why, you know, that you have to be truthful and you have to be honest and you have to shed your skin and all this kind of stuff. So anyway, on the Tuesday, they hired this guy to come in as a temp. And of course, he takes off his coat and he's stark naked. So he's walking around the office stark naked. This is acclimatizing the people to nudity, obviously. And he's walking around the office naked for that day. And of course, one of the women's she doesn't know where to look. And he's walking around the office. So then it comes to Wednesday, and on Wednesday they had to photocopy some body parts. So most of them were doing arms and legs and stuff, but the receptionist decides to photocopy her boobs, and then he puts them up on the wall, and he said, who owns these, you know, whose hand is this, whose leg is this, type of thing. And then on the Thursday, they get this in, this naked lady comes in. She's one of these art models where she poses nude, and you have to draw the lady. So everybody had to sit around and draw this lady, and there she was lying there in altogether stark naked. So the experiment was, who's going to come into the office on the Friday naked? So it turns out that everybody came into the office naked, bar one of the women who came in with her underwear on, and one of the guys came in with a thong on with an elephant head in front. But the other guys, and of course, you didn't say anything because they were walking around the office. They just happened to be carrying a portfolio with them every time they got up from the desk. But and then of course they're sitting around the table naked, and the business guy is there and going, well, how do you feel about, you know, the week and da-di-da-di-da-di-da. And I thought, you know, I mean, I just picture back to me working in the corporate world thinking, God, you just couldn't do it. I mean, what do you think of that? What's your take on that?
Well, that's the Tavistock thing, that is. That's the slow drip, 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 and coercing the entire group into something. Yeah. I'll guarantee at some point there was one person, I've not seen the programme, I'll stress this, but I'll bet at some point there was one person that didn't really feel comfortable with it. And it wasn't the psychologist, it was the other people of the group that said, you know what, no, it's fine, this is it, this is entirely how we'll do it, it's okay, it's fine. I'll even put my sort of, like, I don't know if this happened, this might have happened and not been shown, somebody would have probably gone up to the psychologist at some point and gone, this is rubbish, I can see through this is absolute rubbish, right? And they'll have been taken off by the psychiatrist and given a one-to-one, and he'll have used almost exactly these words. You're quite special. I think that you're possibly the one here that's got the most potential. You've seen that. Now, you know the techniques. You understand the techniques. Of course, it's just, it doesn't matter. It's just anything. I could have picked anything. It's just to get us together as a group. You know that. That's the point. If I'm being brutally honest, that's really the point of this exercise, to highlight exceptional candidates like yourself that can see through it. Can you do me a favour now that I've buttered you up for half an hour? Can you just go along with this just for me? So I'll bet that those sort of scenarios happen in that particular thing, whether that was shown on the television or not, I don't know. It's a Tavistock Institute technique. It's an enculturation thing that's used throughout different businesses. It won't always be as extreme as naked. That was just basically there to show how far you can convince someone to do anything given enough time and enough psychological skill, but also basically so that people go, ooh, nude bodies, I'll watch that, that's brilliant, that is. The other thing that I'd like to say, is that it's exactly the same method that a cult would use. A cult would use exactly the same thing. Going further from that, it's well known that within the advertising industry, they've studied cult techniques to get people to sort of log themselves emotionally onto brands, because they feel a oneness with the brand. They feel that brand gives them an identity. And the thing about the group naked thing as well is it seems like sort of a personal sort of step. I mean, it's garbage, don't get me wrong, but it seems like, yeah, I did this on my own. But at the same time, it's a group thing. It's a group thing that basically brings people into this thing. It's a group hive mind collective space. The other thing is about the guy that came in on Tuesday naked, and people sort of became accustomed to that. Where have you seen that before? That is exactly exactly the same thing that happens in the fashion industry. When you want to introduce a new fashion, people again think that fashions are organic. Why is everyone wearing skinny jeans? Not just one particular subgenre of teenager. Every subgenre of teenager, from the trendiest kid to the most outrageous alternative in inverted brackets kids. That's not an organic thing. That's happened because the fashion houses have got together and they drip feed it into it. It's called the hypodermic syringe model, basically, where you force something into the system slowly, and by the end of it, people are so used to it that they think it's their own idea. The other way that works, that is a propaganda technique that draws people towards war. What they'll do in the propaganda of the war thing is that they'll find a bone of contention. At the minute it's Muslim extremists or whatever, and they'll slowly start to give you examples and press it to the public consciousness that this is a reason to dislike these people that are associated with this thing, and then before you know it, we dislike the thing that they're associated with, which justifies an invasion. So that's exactly what it's quite frightening that they actually use that on the thing. I mean, people won't. Yes, they'll have signed off for it. Yes, they'll have probably understood before they even went on television what was going off. But it doesn't matter. That's still a coercive thing. That's still a coercive program.
Well, my concern with that, you were right when you said about him pulling people aside. The first day, he said to everybody, "If you have any concerns, come and see me on a one-to-one." Right?
Yeah.
So that's when he would have done all that Tavistock programming. So I was looking at this and I'm thinking, this is not just about a documentary and this business. And obviously at the end of it, the voiceover guy said, "Oh, and they've hired more staff and business has been fantastic and things have been brilliant with the business and everything else," obviously. But I'm looking at this from a psychological point of view and going, this is programming people thinking that this is right, that this is what you have to do, and this is going down a very dark laneway. You know, the whole naked body sex thing, you know what I mean? Well, I'm not saying sex thing, but it was just a bit uncomfortable, you know?
Well, it's sleazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I mean, nobody's arguing against the human form, but that's just exploitative tat, that is.
Yeah, I mean, it was just, you know, because if you think back to yourself, for people who have a job and are working in a company, imagine looking around the people who you're working with and your boss coming in and saying, "By Friday, we're all going to be naked." I mean, you know, I wouldn't be too happy with doing that at all. You know, and from in a corporate world especially, I mean, corporations are so controlled, and you always have the yes men, and it's everything's for the company, and if you're not doing what the company's doing, then you're either with us or against us. And boy, have I been down that so many times, that road.
Well, it's the same principle on a broader scale. It's almost like a cult. Essentially, you're told that we're in this together. We're all part of the company. Do you know what I mean? Like, what's interesting is the way certain companies, if you look at the way that they disseminate positive feedback to their workforce, and the mantras that they have, even the colours that they use, they've basically taken the Communist Manifesto and gone, right, this is an effective way to run a mechanism, i.e. a country, let's do it exactly like that. It's all higher up and one to the thing, and if the company wins, we all win. It's Malthusian in its sort of intent. And so here's another thing, like, that's weird about it. Justification of actions when you're in a company. That's a mind control technique, and this is a tricky one because people say, "Grow up, that's business." If people justify like mass redundancies by saying this would be better for the company, and such like that, that's ridiculous. Like, think about what you're saying. The company's not real. The company is an imagined. At the very best, it's a load of it's a load of rich people who sit on a board. It is a faceless entity. It's not real. And it's never going to reward you personally. It's never going to come round and have tea with you. And you, at work, what you tend to see is a lot of backstabbing because people feel that that's what the company, who remember doesn't exist, that's what the company would want. So it justifies that. People become reptilian in their nature at work to get on. Because the other thing is with any with any institution, you have to go along to get along. So you might find that you alter the topics of conversation that you have because you don't want to upset people, you don't want to cause trouble, you just simply don't want to get the sack. That's one thing. You might, even as you move up, because certainly when you get to manager level, or whatever, you really need to love that company. You really need to enthuse and eat, sleep and drink that company. So you might sort of start changing your lifestyle and certain things like that, all to get on and to whatever. An interesting institution where this is seen very, very clearly, and this might sound silly, but go back and watch Cops. Can you remember that show Cops? It was like the precursor to police camera action and stuff like that.
The Bad Boys.
There's a game that you can play which is spot the cop type, because there's only about 4 types of cop. There's short spiky hair with mustache, side parting, and side parting with mustache. And that's it. There's a very distinct type of look within police. And the reason for that is because of the nature of the institution. Basically, you're there in a very small, tight-knit, collective group. Again, you're all trying to get on to get along. The only way that you're going to get a promotion is to impress your manager / sergeant / whatever. So you basically start to emulate. You're certainly not going to do anything that's going to make everybody hate you. What's one of the most effective ways of blending in and making people like you, making you feel like a collective? A uniform. That's why people don't understand this. Alternative genres and stuff like that, you adopt a uniform. The second you start adopting a uniform in the punk genre, the second you start it in the goth genre, the second you've disintegrated any effectiveness that genre had. You've ruined the creativity. You're now a marketable strand. You're something that I can sell to. I know. I've studied your input, and I can now see through what stimuli I can generate output. Give me money. That's how it works. That's how that's how society works.
And that's how corporate companies work. I mean, I used to call them empire builders. A little bit of confidence, a little bit more money, a little bit of confidence, a bit more money, promotion. And before you know it, they've kicked the cross the line to arrogance. And, they have their extra staff and their extra responsibilities and more money. And I've seen it time and time again with people and the yes men. And it's unbelievable. Now, if you amplify that in politics, I mean, there's no reason why that wouldn't be the same situation with people trying to get on and climb the ladder. Yeah. And you have the whip system like we have over here. And it's more important. They go into politics, and they like George Lee. They go in, and they think they're going to make a difference. And they find out that, well, actually, these parties are institutionalised. I mean, look at that George Costello, who was on Vincent Brown, the video that's gone around we talked about earlier. I mean, the crap that this guy was coming out with. Again, the same mantra. We're for the people and we're trying to do this and and does he not realise people are sick of hearing this crap from the politicians saying the same thing? The guy doesn't even believe it himself. He's just reading from a hymn sheet,
Yeah, of course he is. Well, that's all that they can do. It's interesting that you mentioned the whip thing, because that's the other thing. You might want to do good when you get into Parliament or you get into politics. The only way you get into politics is to be voted in by your peers, which is exactly the same sort of scenario that we were talking about. The whips are there, essentially. The whips are like Max Clifford. See, Max Clifford's got all the dirt. Yeah. Whips have all the dirt. That is their job, to keep dirt out of it. So when Andrew Mitchell was being chastised by the police, I knew, I don't know whether you've seen this, the guy in England, he basically apparently called police plebs because they wouldn't let him through a gate on his bike.
That's right, yeah.
Right, okay. Frankly, okay, aside from anything else, I'm going to say this, right, okay, who cares? Who cares if you've been called a pleb? I don't care. I understand the social context of it, but my God, did they make a big deal out of it. And I said at the time, this is weird because whips are untouchable. Whips are the government. Whips are the facilitators of the government. This is why it doesn't grind to a halt on election night, because there's always somebody there. Politicians are essentially the salesmen. Politicians are the people that sell you the suit in next. They're nothing to do with the company. Nothing at all. but this guy, basically, he's been chastised by the police, lost his job, and, you know, all this. Since it's come out that perhaps the police involved have lied about what he said and, you know, corroborated to make his story seem worse. And I knew that something like this was going to happen, because so what this is it's cracking down on, in inverted commas, whistleblowers. What it's saying is you can't whistleblow. You will now have to go through an official channel to get your grievance heard, because we cannot trust whistleblowers. Because look at what these police have done. They were whistleblowing and they lied about it to get to heighten their point. I strongly believe that the entire incident was probably a contrived event. I think the entire incident was a contrived event, and I think this, tying in with the Leveson inquiry, which is chastising the press for something that, there are laws already in place that basically cover every aspect of what was covered. There is no need to do a larger law. And beside the point, the concept of phone hacking, if that's what you call it, and blagging, which is basically going through people's bins, is as old as journalism. Well, obviously the hacking is as old as mobile phones and journalism itself. Okay, so it is, again, this is a contrived event. It is a wonderful spectacle in the media, but it is there to chastise the news media. And again, the recommendations that are coming out of this are go through official channels. If you've got something about the police, don't go to the newspapers, go to the police themselves, because they need to, we need responsible people to go over this information and see if it is viable before it is sort of espoused on the public, because God forbid somebody that is innocent gets besmirched by someone's inaccurate research. And this is all of these elements that are happening. The Twitter row is connected to the Jimmy Savile scandal, the Leveson inquiry, the thing with Andrew Mitchell. All of this is connected in some way. There is, and it's really quite worrying, because what we're talking about is sort of blanket sort of rules and regulations that come in, and you know, they've always been floating ideas about censorship of the internet and such like that. And I wonder if Cameron played it quite cleverly as well, saying that, well, I'm not going to clamour to these people, so I'm not going to do it. He will when the public, because the newspapers tell them that's what they want, tell him that that's what they want. And by the time that it's done and we realise that you've been hoodwinked, it'll be far too late.
Yeah. It's amazing how, even though we are aware, you know, for the people in the truth movement and who are awake, it's amazing how people are, you know, we are still kind of fooled by what's going on, you know. It is amazing. But I don't know, Steve, do you have any questions there for Neil?
I certainly do.
Oh, Steve has a few questions for you there, so we'll go over to Steve.
Yeah, that's all very interesting stuff. Lord Vapor had a question. Can you ask Neil if he's aware of Bob Hope working with British intelligence and MK Ultra mind control sex slave program?
Bob Hope was right. The story is that Bob Hope was the handler, which a handler is somebody that basically owns a mind control slave. This particular type of slave was a monarch presidential model, which is a blonde-haired, blue-eyed sex slave that also acts as a personal computer by using their photographic memory. The story is that Bob Hope was the handler of Bryce Taylor, whose real name is Susan Ford. She wrote a book called Thanks for the Memories and another one called Starshine. It sounds outrageous, and basically what he was saying was that he was using his... I mean, one of the things about Bob Hope was a comedian, but Bob Hope didn't actually write any of his jokes. Bob Hope just read a script, and he was very good at doing it. Well, he's very dated now and not actually that funny, but he was considered to be very good at doing it. She contends that this was actually cover for his espionage duties, and if so, he would definitely be connected to the MK Ultra style thing. Walter Bauer, who wrote a book called Operation Mind Control, he actually one of the things that supports Bryce Taylor's story is that he reportedly saw Bryce Taylor in the company of Bob Hope as a hostess, one of his entourage, many years before he actually heard the story from her, and there is no record of her actually working for him. So that in some way brings out one of the things that people might think this is nonsense, but Yeah, entertainers are used as a cover. I forget the name of the guy that basically came up with the blind date game. It's called Confessions of a Dangerous Mind is the film, and people have poo-pooed this as this guy was nuts. But he was saying what he claimed was that he was a spy that worked on espionage, in assassinations, essentially. So when he was going on the holidays with the blind date couples, that was his cover for his espionage missions. And obviously this was rubbished by everybody, but he maintained that that was true. Harry Houdini, this is not well known, but it's almost certain that Harry Houdini and even John Wilkes Booth, who was an actor, used their entertainment as a cover for espionage things. I've not found that out myself. That's from Dave McGowan and Inside the LC. But again, it bears out the possibility that Bob Hope could have been involved in that sort of scenario.
Yeah, wow. I did hear that. I think Cathy O'Brien from Transformation of America mentioned Bob Hope as well, I think.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, Ronald Reagan has talked about, Henry Kissinger's talked about,
Gerald
Chris
Ford.
Christopherson's talked about in respect to being handlers. Obviously, they also, in both those books, mention a lot of politicians, Bill and Hillary Clinton, George H.W. Bush, Pierre Trudeau, and numerous others as handlers. Those books, they're good. They are... Sort of, it seems quite fantastical to the sort of uninitiated. One of the sort of main arguments for the truthfulness of those books is that they have sent copies to various people who are usually very litigious. I mean, there's stuff in there that says Dick Cheney breaks her jaw in a sexual act and stuff like that, and this is a published book. So the argument is that these people would have sued if there'd been anything in there that wasn't true, but they don't want to sue because... Obviously, this will bring out a big sort of can of worms, and whenever these two people, Bryce Taylor and I forget, Cathy O'Brien, whenever they've tried to sort of process this through the courts, they've always been stamped on from a great height due to national security.
Yeah, and there's a number of other alleged people involved. Names I've heard. And I say, I've heard these, I don't know, and allegedly, but Gerald Ford is one of them. Willie Nelson is another one. As I say, this is just third party, I don't know how true that is, so that's allegedly. And it's Hollywood is rife anyway. I mean, we know them. Who's the child stars who are coming out?
Corey Haim and Corey Feldman.
That's right, they're coming out too, and they're writing a book about what went on, he said.
Chris Cross, can you remember Chris Cross? The rappers, the little rappers, that wore their clothes backwards. Yeah. They did that song Jump.
That's right.
They both came out and claimed that Jermaine Dupri had raped them. Jermaine Dupri used to be married to Janet Jackson, and he's the owner of So Def Records. Raz B's another star. He came out claiming that an R&B star that he was in that managed his group, that was a child group called Marcus Houston, had sex with him and raped him. Cat Williams recently came out and started talking about, he's a comedian, started talking about various celebrities having clandestine homosexual trysts and such like that. It's strange old world.
It is, but we have a few minutes left, Neil, just to kind of sum up. Yeah, I'm going to pass off to Steve now in a minute for another question, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Just to kind of quickly sum up on it, if you can, in a couple of sentences, if possible. Why are all these people doing this? Why are they all these paedophiles? Why is... Is it a chemical imbalance, or what do you think it is? I'm
not sure. Like, certainly, I mean, the thing is, this bizarre thing, it's like you were saying earlier, right, about the sort of, they get bored and, you know, they've got to try these more and more outrageous things. Certainly that's how it's played out in the rock star milieu. If you've ever read Hammer of the Gods, which is the Led Zeppelin autobiography, they started sleeping with girls because they'd just done everything else. So they started sleeping with younger girls. Doesn't make it right, but there is also a strange dichotomy with what is accepted and what isn't accepted. There was a weird article in The Guardian just this week that was basically saying, well, all these paedophile cases have come out. Is it about time that we examined what being a paedophile is? And the tone of it was that, hang on, maybe this isn't a crime. That's disturbing. As a response to this, did you see the House of Lords in England last week tried to, as a response to this, there's a problem with underage sex. Okay, well, let's change the law and make it so that the age of consent is 14. That'll solve the problem. That doesn't solve the problem. It solves the problem on paper in a logistical sense, but that doesn't solve the problem. So is there a normalisation of it that is going on? And if so, for why? I mean, I did say this on the Rich Planet as well, but it's okay. It's okay to do it if you're Bill Wyman. It's okay to do it if you're Pete Townsend. It's okay to do it if you're Jimmy Page or Roman Polanski or Elvis Presley or Woody Allen or Charlie Chaplin or R. Kelly. The point is, Wilfrid Bramble, he's a known paedophile. Jonathan King, Gary Glitter, their records are not played anymore. Rightly so. Chris Langham is never to be shown on the BBC again. All of these certain people are treated like that and are cast as the outcasts forever, whereas the mainstream media seems to hang on to certain other entities that are provably just as dodgy and have done, in some cases, far worse. Roman Polanski, Charlie Chaplin, Woody Allen, monsters, all of them. Absolute. What the things that those people did provably are not only crimes, but the most reprehensible, despicable crimes that you can do. But because they're money-making entities, because a lot of people have invested a lot of sort of emotional response into these people, for whatever reason, it's overlooked.
Well, the money becomes the god, doesn't it? And
Sorry?
the money becomes the god for these people, and the people who support them, and they just kind of, ignore really what they're doing, because if they're making that person money, well, then they'll kind of overlook the things they were doing.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, obviously, those people could be. They could flip those people. That's the other thing. I mean, maybe that's it. They're sound now. Those guys, like Woody Allen's never going to do a Stanley Kubrick and sort of expose rituals in his boring film with Tom Cruise in it, is he? No, he's certainly not. Like, okay. You've got those people in the palm of your hand. I mean, Elvis Presley. That's the other thing. Like, Elvis Presley had teenagers on his rider. I've heard that before. I'm going to say allegedly, just to be careful there. Elvis Presley allegedly had teenage girls on his rider. That's what he wanted after a show. Twins, I've heard, was the rumour. Don't know if it's true. 14-year-old twins, blonde, is what I heard. It was on a show called a Grub Smith show that I saw years ago. And he married Priscilla Presley when she was 14. R. Kelly married Aaliyah when she was 15. But these are money-making entities. So you're right, this is it. It's passed off. And people that do come out and say these things, they are derided in the public. Like, Corey Haim's coming out and saying these things. Corey Feldman's coming out and saying these things. Corey Feldman is somebody that has been in Hollywood all his life as a child, seeing all the nasty elements of it. No one's taking him seriously. Basically what people are saying is, yeah, your career's dead, mate. That's why you're coming out with this. That's childish. That's ridiculous. And not even giving for a second what's going on. During the original Michael Jackson case, LaToya Jackson came out and said, essentially she said, I'm paraphrasing, but I'm not surprised that this happened because Joe Jackson, my father, Michael Jackson's father, used to sexually abuse Michael when he was younger too, and I don't want to see this being repeated by Michael. And she was called an idiot. So there is a media machine that is there to stamp down on anything that in the mainstream doesn't go along with the scripts, and they will be destroyed ultimately. Anybody that wants to sort of play that game, that is in that sort of realm, you can't do it. You think, I'm unstoppable now, look at me, blah blah blah, look at, I can come out and say everything, I can say anything because I'm making, that's the other problem, like, I'm making too much money for them, I am bigger than the show. You'll be found with a dead prostitute in your trailer and like 400 grams worth of cocaine and a loaded gun.
Yeah,
this is what will happen. You step out of line. There's a very good book called it's an Alex Constantine book.
I'll have to
look
think
it
about
up.
it.
It's about musicians that were assassinated, and I've totally forgotten it.
Okay,
don't worry. Alex Constantine, you should buy all these books anyway. He lists all these celebrities, and basically like Bob Marley and Pete Tosh and Sal Mineo and Tupac Shakur and Biggie Smalls and Phil Oakes and numerous other people that were provably murdered because they were not sticking to the script. They were investigating other things that they shouldn't have been doing. David Carradine, he starts investigating secret societies in Japan. He winds up dead, hung himself in a sex scenario. How embarrassing. We don't even bother to look. Go and look at the pictures of David Carradine. Right? David Carradine's hands are handcuffed. I want to see the person that can hang themselves with the hands tied. It's ridiculous. It takes 4 seconds of looking at that. Stephen Milligan, I believe was his name, the MP that was found with the orange with amyl nitrate dressed as a woman with a plastic bag over his head. He was investigating child sex allegations. People don't seem to realise that because nobody cares. The guy, Mitchell, I can't remember his name, the young spy that was found in a bag, obviously murdered in his flat, in his bath.
That's right.
They come out with loads of lurid statements and stuff, saying he's a cross-dresser, saying he's a transvestite, saying that he's into drugs, saying that he's homosexual. So all it is, it's titillation, it's sensationalism and titillation to basically go, ooh, that's interesting, and draw you away from the thing. So they'll do two things. They'll do three things. They'll destroy you, they'll kill you, and they'll make you look stupid. And they can do that. And so when you see people that go through these public things where basically that doesn't happen and then they sort of become very contrite, one of two things happened. Either the thing was a contrived event and it's just there because occasionally they will throw bones to us and say, look at this, you're winning, you've got a spokesperson, you've got somebody that stands up for you, you've got a hero to look towards. Or the alternative is that basically this person's been taken off into a quiet room by his manager and shown a photo of them sleeping or something and said that's how close they can get to you.
They have
Stop saying what you're saying.
They have the damage limitation team, but I'll tell you now, we're just very close to closing down now. So a quick question from Steve, and then we'll do a quick roundup. Yeah. Right,
we've got a comment and a question from Mick, a good friend Mick. Mick says, and I think this is quite true, if a newsreader begins a story with the words, according to a recent study, most people will believe whatever comes next, and I think that's kind of, it's setting you up to already pre-program you to believe because a recent study has proven it. And Mick is also wondering, Neil, if you have any thoughts about the nurse who died recently connected to the Kate Middleton hospital scandal. Mick thinks it looks very fishy.
And if you do, can you make it very quick?
It does look very fishy. It was a huge distraction. I've posted some bits about this on my Facebook page, so if people want to go and have a look on this, I hate Facebook, I'm sorry for that, but please go and have a look and like the page, and there's some stuff about that. Very fishy, perfect distraction. I don't buy it for a second. I don't believe it. I just, none of it. I don't believe that the woman would kill herself, and if she did, I don't believe that's my personal opinion due to her religious nature, and I don't believe that if she did, she'd do it in the way that she did, and I don't believe that the DJs that made the prank phone call were in any way responsible for it. I think it's very, very, very suspicious. And the thing that you're saying about the polls is absolutely 100% true. We're wired psychologically to, if we see something again and again and again, like you see 20 polls in a day that tells you Barack Obama is winning the election, you then absorb that, tell people that, and then that becomes the truth. Yeah. And if people don't think that that's true, there's been a huge scandal on YouTube recently with popular artists having to delete literally millions of views from their YouTube accounts. Why is that? Okay, it's because again you're wired to want to be connected to popular people. So if you go on something, have you ever? People do this. You'll hear about a good video or something like that. You'll go on it, see that it's got 13 views, and go, I'm not watching that. Nobody's watched that. Only 13 people have watched it. I'm not wasting my time watching that if only 13 people have watched that. You're psychologically wired to want to be popular, because if you're popular, people won't kill you. It's like an instinctual thing. So that is why people make false surveys, false results, and post false things on YouTube. It's how the Beatles and Frank Sinatra got on. They paid people to scream so that everyone got caught up in the actual, the hype of it. And, I want to be involved in this. This is new. This is sensational. But yeah, going back to the nurse, I think it was highly suspicious of timing, perfect distraction away from the Jimmy Savile thing, a perfect way to clamp down on the media, and don't get me wrong, I think it's horrible for the people involved, and my condolences to all involved, but I also find it highly suspicious that somebody who was apparently a devout Catholic would choose to end their life over something so unimportant.
So trivial.
Perhaps,
all right, Neil. Well, listen, thanks a lot for coming on. We really hit that time. We've got about 6 minutes and we have to wind up the show. But listen, thanks a lot for coming on. Much appreciated. If you pass it over to Steve, and Steve will just do the roundup for you there. Thanks for coming on.
Cheers.
Okay. Neil, again, it's been brilliant information. It's always a pleasure to have you on, all twice. So we look forward to the third time we have you on. NeilSandersMindControl.com is the website. I know that you do have the books, but anyway, I know we are tight over time. So Neil, I'm just going to throw it over to you and let you have the last word anyway.
I would just thank you very much, and I'm happy to come back whenever you have me. But yeah, thanks to everyone for listening. If you want to go to the website, NeilSandersMindControl.com, it's not just the books are obviously on there. Your Thoughts Not Your Own Volume 1 and 2, but there's also a series of videos. There's Rich Planet. There's various radio shows that I've done. There's live talks on there. So yeah, please go and check that out. There's and also my Facebook page. If people could go on the Facebook page and like that. I sort of do posts every day talking about the news and such like that, and it's also a way that you can get in contact with me. Also, on my website, there's an email facility, so if you want to send me any questions or anything like that, please get in touch with me.
Neil, what's the Facebook page? You haven't even left them. People are always...
It's Neil Sanders, and there's a picture of a businessman marionette, and I think it's red. It's actually it's the front cover of my book. So please, if everyone's on there, please get on there and like it.
Brilliant stuff. Neil, thanks a lot for coming on. We're not even going to go to musical break. We've only got 4 minutes, so we'll let you go on Skype anyway. And listen, we'll get you on again, definitely, and because these conversations are really brilliant, and there's so much to talk about that we never have enough time. But we'll get you on again in a few months' time, and we'll have another chat, yeah?
Oh yeah, I look forward to it. So I'm available whenever. But thank you very much for inviting me, and thank you for letting me talk about my books and my website, NeilSandersMindControl.com. And yeah, thanks for everyone for listening. Thank you very much.
That's great, Neil. All right, take care of yourself.
Thanks, Neil.
Ciao, bye bye.
Take care.
Right, okay. So that was Neil Sanders there. We just have enough time just to kind of fill in what's going to be happening for next week. Now, next week, the plan of attack is we're going to have a chap on called Andrew Passaggio. Now, Andrew has qualifications all the way down his arm and even longer than that, right? And this Andrew has been involved in Project Pegasus, which is actually time travel and trips to Mars, would you believe? And loads of information about Project Pegasus and hidden technology which they haven't told us about, and the capabilities of the hidden government and what they can do. So that's going to be a really good interview for next week to catch up and just find out what he was involved in when he was young. And I believe another chap that we might be getting on also maybe down the line is a chap called William Stillings, who knows Andrew because the two of them were involved in the same project. Project Pegasus, so that's quite interesting. But that was a great interview, I have to say. Brilliant information again, as usual, from Neil, Mind Control. And don't go waking up at 2 or 3 in the morning trying to look for a program called Naked Office. It was probably a one-off thing, and I just had nightmares after thinking of going back. Imagine in your company, in the office where you are, and you have to go into work naked, where everybody there. I don't know.
So can I put my clothes back on now?
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
perv.
Okay, next week OYM in the studio. We have to come here naked.
OYM naked.
And there'll be no webcams.
No. Yeah. What was the thing last week? I was calling you, slagging you. Buckyballs, yeah.
We were talking about the buckyball.
Yeah.
Okay.
Come here. I'm not sure who Vin has on tonight because I basically forgot to ask. But for more of the same,
I can tell you that.
Okay, go ahead.
Vin, there's this YouTube video going around, and it was a 16-year-old was videoed drunk in a bar, and she was going on how brilliant her dad is, and the fact that he's a partner in a famous corporate company. And basically, they're trying to say that this was cyberbullying, but I don't see it myself. So I think Vin, as far as I know, is going to be talking about and what defines cyberbullying and all that kind of stuff. I think that's really what's on the cards for TNS. Going to be interesting, I'd say.
Yeah, I've actually seen that video. I didn't realise she was only 16. She looks a lot older. I'm not sure if it was a bar, though. Might look more like a fast food place.
Okay.
But where are you going to be now? Where are you going?
Okay, well, I've been asked to go over to join oraclebroadcasting.com and join Karen to do another interview. So if you're not fed up with me, then go over to oraclebroadcasting.com and you'll probably hear myself, Karen, and another chap called Hal, I believe. There's a few things I have to do here first, but we'll sort something out. But it's reached that time, so good night. Have a safe week. If there's any news, let us know. Take care. For myself, Alan James, take it easy.
Okay, and the same for me. I know we are tight from time, so I'll just say good night. We'll do it all again next week. Great show in the bag. Take care. Bye-bye.
You